Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Natalia Moczulska and this is the news. After 14 years of conservative rule, Great Britain is changing course and handing over the reins to the Labour Party. The results have been announced, and King Charles III has already given the mission of forming a government to the new Prime Minister. Keir Starmer has a lot of support, but also a lot of problems on his plate, especially economic ones. This is how the Brits are welcoming their new Prime Minister. The 61-year-old Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party, takes office with a huge vote of confidence, but also with a load of big public expectations, especially economic ones.
The country has voted decisively for change, for national renewal, and a return of politics to public service. When the gap between the sacrifices made by people and the service they receive from politicians grows this big, it leads to a weariness in the heart of a nation, a draining away of the hope, the spirit, the belief in a better future, that we need to move forward together.
Change. This slogan carried him all the way to 10 Downing Street, the seat of the British Prime Minister. Keir Starmer, a lawyer with knighthood, entered serious politics less than a decade ago. This is a man who is boring and lacks charisma compared to Johnson or even Trump. This is not a man who exudes his ego. He is quite modest. King Charles III gave him the mission to form a government. The British ambassador to Poland spoke about the priorities of the new British government in a new special interview with TV Republika. The main aspects for the new government are national security, secure borders, and stable growth of the economy. So I think these will be the priorities of the new government. The Labour Party has even swept away its rivals. It will have more than 400 seats in the 650-seat parliament, almost doubling its holdings. The Conservatives, in retreat, lost 250 seats, leaving them with just over 100. The Liberal Democrats fared well. The Conservatives are at a loss on Great Britain's existing single-member constituencies and the way votes are counted. The Labour Party's supporters are not increasing over the years, but they are still gaining additional seats. In 2017, for example, despite having more support than today, they lost. And today, it was the electoral system that gave them the victory. Britons are facing a debate on how to count votes fairly.
Most people voted for not Conservatives, I'd say. So it was Labour, Lib Dem, or Reform. People just didn't want to vote for Conservatives.
The Conservatives' 14-year rule was defined by two words, Brexit and COVID. Both have hit the British people hard, especially economically. On top of that, mass immigration. The political price was paid by the Tories. They didn't manage with the number of immigrants coming to the UK. They also didn't manage how the UK is supposed to exist in this post-Brexit world. They didn't implement Brexit properly. And behind that door, they ruled for 14 years. In succession, David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, and the last Conservative Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak.
I am sorry. I have given this job my all, but you have sent a clear signal that the government of the United Kingdom must change, and yours is the only judgment that matters. I have heard your anger, your disappointment, and I take responsibility for this loss.
Storm, upheaval, earthquake. British commentators give different assessments of what happened in the United Kingdom. Only Larry, a permanent tenant of 10 Downing Street, has embraced the changes with composure. Marcin Szewczak, TV Republika. Yesterday, our station revealed shocking documents. They testify to the concept of reducing the Polish army's budget by 57 billion zloty over 4 years. The information was instantly denied by the Polish Minister of National Defense, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, who called it a lie. But the authenticity of the revealed documents containing such plans is confirmed by the General Staff of the Polish Army and the head of the National Security Bureau, Jacek Siewiera. According to a document revealed by our TV station, the new government is considering reducing the military budget of Poland by 25%.
Wydatki na obronność.
Defense spending in the declaration of the Polish Minister of Defense will not be reduced, but the documents that have been revealed by, as your editor said, pro-law and justice media, I would say conservative media, are true.
Prawdziwe.
Interestingly, immediately after the publication of the documents on our air, there was a very strong reaction from the Polish Ministry of National Defense, which argued that this was false information and accused our television of, note, acting in favor of Russia. The Ministry of Defense is demanding that TV Republika immediately correct the false information. In the absence of a correction, we will consider taking appropriate legal steps to protect the good name of the Polish Ministry of Defense and prevent further spread of disinformation. In addition, questions arise about possible foreign, including Russian, inspiration behind these actions. We want to know on whose orders the authors of these false reports acted and what their motivations were. The Ministry of Defense did not apologize to our TV station, both after the words of the head of the National Security Bureau and after the General Staff Conference, at which the authenticity of the published documents was confirmed.
Nie mówimy o piśmie.
We are not talking about the letter. We are talking about the draft guidelines in which we adopted certain estimates. I emphasize, these figures were higher than in 2024. So I understand that the General Staff gave its opinion on this draft guidance of the Minister of Defense for planning this budget. Yes, this is a cyclical element resulting from intranormative legal acts in force in the Polish Ministry of National Defense. Politicians close to Donald Tusk assure that military spending will not be reduced. However, revealed documents that show the ruling team's plans prove otherwise.
Ja zacznę może od gratulacji dla...
I will perhaps start by congratulating TV Republika for revealing this document. This document was not supposed to see the light of day because it is embarrassing for the new Polish government. They say something else and do something else. The Chief of General Staff, General Wiesław Kukuła, did not agree on the plan, meaning he did not agree to the budget cuts for the Polish military, which means he is the one who blocked them.
Chcę podkreślić postawę...
I want to emphasize the attitude of the Chief of General Staff, General Kukuła, who did not agree to the thesis in the letter, that is, to the reduction of 57 billion zloty in spending on central material plans over 4 years. The government's plans to reduce military spending in Poland have coincided with actions by the European Commission. Brussels imposed the excessive deficit procedure on Poland on June 19. Politicians from Donald Tusk's camp assured that it would not cover such a key issue as our armaments, but we're already seeing overcuts, and this is just the beginning of the cuts. Paweł Włoch, TV Republika. There is still no agreement to acquire state-of-the-art equipment for the Polish military. American Apache attack helicopters, Himars rocket launchers, and Korean K-2 tanks, cannon howitzers, or aircraft. According to the document revealed by our TV station, the reduction in Poland's defense funding from 2025 to 2028 is expected to amount to more than 57 billion zloty. After a document talking about gigantic cuts in defense funding was revealed on our air, the leadership of Poland's Ministry of Defense argues that there will be no cuts and that the ministry's budget will increase by 1/10, except that it's not about the budget at all.
Po prostu chcą ściąć.
They simply want to cut those expenses planned. This is not money that is budgeted to be spent on the defense ministry. This is money that is planned to make necessary purchases, and this is where the cuts are to be made. Because the increase increase in the budget announced by the Defense Ministry is related to the growing number of Polish soldiers and issues such as army service and soldiers' pensions. The revealed plan for cuts is all the more worrisome because it may involve, among other things, contracts for the supply of military equipment. The entire mechanism for creating what the General Staff has proposed, that is to build such forces that will be able to repel a Russian attack on their own, is being destroyed at the moment. This is about the critical for Polish defense framework contracts signed during the Law and Justice government for the supply of state-of-the-art American and Korean equipment for the Polish army. We are still waiting for a contract to be signed for the acquisition of 96 Apache attack helicopters. We are still waiting for the acquisition of nearly 500 Himars launchers, and we are waiting for an agreement with South Korea for the production of K2 tanks in Poland, and so far, there is no action. In the context of obtaining American Apache helicopters, the Tusk government's lack of action is all the more surprising, given that according to recent Wall Street Journal reports, Poland recently handed over half of its Mi-24 attack helicopters to Ukraine. A document, the so-called letter of acceptance, that is, an agreement from the U.S. government, has been sitting on my desk for several months, while the possibility of signing this agreement is conditional on the offset package. We are actually very close to signing a contract for the acquisition of U.S. attack helicopters. We trained pilots in the United States. The Americans were supposed to lend Poland some quantity of these helicopters to use for a while before we got the helicopters of our own. There is no contract, no signature. The pilots are there, but they don't have anything to fly on. The same is true of contracts with South Korea. As of early July, a contract signed by Law and Justice forming a consortium between the Poznań Military Automotive Plant and a South Korean tank manufacturer expired. According to the agreement, K2 tanks were to be produced in Poland. If there is no goodwill to make rapid progress in modernizing the Polish army, and if you play for time, then it leads to contracts being broken. The question is whether the reason for the new government's sluggishness is not Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk's turn to Berlin, because as he said recently during a visit by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, it is Germany that is to become the leading country in the matter of European security, including Polish security. Rather than making our sovereign decisions regarding arms industry purchases, whether cooperating with South Korea or the US, will it be such an expectation on the part of our Western partners in the European Union that we can only do these arms contracts with either the French or the Germans? Let's hope we don't end up like we did under Donald Tusk's first government, when Poland's armament spending was severely cut. Radosław Jankiewicz, TV Republika. Yesterday, millions of Americans celebrated Independence Day, commonly known as the 4th of July. Let's take a look at how Americans celebrated their special holiday across the U.S. Millions of Americans took a 4th of July break, flocking to parades, fireworks shows, and barbecues for a brief respite from the daily drumbeat of unsettling news at home and abroad. The holiday, which marks the July 4th signing of the Declaration of Independence from Great Britain in 1776, is a day when Americans traditionally celebrate with proud displays of old-fashioned patriotism. This year, with the country's drift toward hyper-partisanship and an election battle underway between President Joe Biden and challenger Donald Trump, it was a chance for Americans to come together for a day and forget about their differences. Thousands of people gathered at the National Mall in Washington, D.C. to witness a fireworks display celebrating 4th of July. The spectacle began promptly at 9 p.m. and illuminated the night sky for approximately 17 minutes. Now let's take a look at how New York City celebrated the 4th of July this year. Macy's fireworks display lit up the sky against the backdrop of Manhattan's skyline, and attendees enjoyed a number of musical performances. This year marks the 48th annual 4th of July fireworks show by the department store chain Macy's, now staged along the Hudson River for the first time in a decade. In recent years, the spectacle has taken place along the East River. Launched from barges moored in the river, some 60,000 shells traveled about 1,000 feet or 300 meters high before exploding into dozens of colors and special effects to delight tens of thousands of spectators on both sides of the Hudson, which separates Manhattan from New Jersey. The show lasted nearly 20 minutes. That's all for the news tonight. Thank you so much for joining us and have a wonderful evening.